Welcome to the CloudPod, where the forecast is always cloudy. We talk weekly about all things AWS, Google, and Azure. We are your hosts,
Justin,
Jonathan,
and Peter.
Episode 17, recorded April 2nd, 2019. The CloudPod, now 100% open source. Happy Tuesday evening, guys. It's a lovely first Tuesday of April, and it's a busy week headed into Google next week. But first of all, as tradition, let's start with what we're drinking this evening. So I have gone back to the Macallan, as I have done here at the office. So it's delicious and quite tasty on ice. How about you, Peter?
I'm on no alcohol today because I'm got a long drive ahead of me after this. So Pellegrino Aranciata. I guess that's
lovely,
orange
lovely.
in Italian. Yeah.
I don't know. My Italian's a little weak. How about you, Jonathan?
I just have a nice cool glass of ice water today.
Nice. How's your back?
Well, the back's great. The leg is a different question entirely. It's getting old.
All right, let's start with follow-up, as we like to do here on the show. So last week, Jonathan, when you weren't here, we had Chris Short on, as you know from editing. And we talked a little bit about KubeCTL versus KubeControl or KubeCTL. And happens to be that Andy Ye, who apparently used to be on the Kubernetes team, admitted that he slipped into the release notes on Kubernetes 1.9 that the canonical pronunciation of KubeCTL is KubeControl. So
Makes sense.
If it's in the release notes, it's got to be the way it is. But I'm still partial to KubeCTL personally, but maybe that's just my allegiance to the AMI camp.
When you do copy and paste, do you do CTLC and CTLV, or is it Control C and Control V?
Yeah, it is Control. It is Control C, Control V. So that's fair.
I'm just glad I know every time now that I say KubeCTL that I'm saying it wrong.
Yes.
I'm not going to stop.
I'll let you continue to fight that fight. But our next piece of follow-up. So we talked a few times about hardware in the data center, and particularly around SoftLayer's situation that happened with their out-of-band management card being compromised by a third party. And we talked about the time that was pretty difficult, but Google actually has released a blog post where they talk about what they do to mitigate risk in their hardware supply chain. And so they really break it down into several areas. But first of all, they talk about leveraging custom-built hardware designed by Google, like the Titan chip. And they go through a pretty rigorous vetting process for their vendors, and they're audited regularly by Google to make sure their vendors are of the highest quality and doing the things they expect in their hardware manufacturing process. And then Google also tracks location and status of all equipment within their data centers via barcoding, and they're tracked from acquisition all the way through destruction. And then they also have in their data center, apparently metal detectors and video surveillance is used regularly to ensure that no equipment leaves the data center without authorization prior. So overall, some really nice physical controls. And then they also talked about they're leveraging a cryptographic signature over low-level components like BIOSes, bootloaders, kernels, and base OS images. And those signatures are actually being validated on every boot or update to their infrastructure. And they talk about this all in their very robust defense in depth approach. This is a really fascinating article if you're into this kind of security stuff like I am. It kind of gives you a good breakdown of what Google's doing to protect your compute assets that you're leveraging in their cloud. So really nice update and something we talked about on the show here, so we thought we'd share it with you guys all.
Yeah, we'll post the link in the show notes on the website. It's a really good article. I wish Amazon and Microsoft would do the same thing for their own clouds, laying it all out there like this. Near the bottom of that article is another link to how they deal with encryption and authentication of network traffic between microservices, which is also really fascinating. So definitely worth digging into that.
Yeah, and I think Amazon has some stuff similar in a little bit more buried in some of the documentation on their site, and then I think they do a good job at presenting a more detailed picture like under NDA. But these are all the reasons why I don't know why anybody would want to build their own data center anymore.
Yeah, I think Amazon tend to go for the compliance view on things. You click on the SOC compliance link and it'll tell you what they do that meets SOC compliance. But I love the way Google have laid all this out in a very straightforward way.
All right, well, let's move on to main topics for tonight. So first of all, we talked last week that at the summit, Werner announced Now Go Build number 2, which is Singapore. And I know we all three of us had a chance to watch that in the last week, and it's time to share some thoughts. So let's start with you, Peter.
Again, I was impressed with the production quality. it was a pretty entertaining show. I didn't think I would be entertained watching a machine make roti, and definitely entertained by that. But it was pretty neat just thinking about how we're making kind of a big deal about the fact that this bread maker is connected to the internet and sends statistics back home. It's going to be fun in 10 years to look back and when everything does this as sort of an MVP release.
Yeah, definitely was an interesting device. And did you happen to take a look at how much that device costs here in the States?
I did not.
It is a very cool $1,000. You can own your own roti maker at your house, which at one side I was like, well, that's really expensive. But then I watched them make the roti in the video and I was like, oh no, that's super cheap.
Yeah.
How about you, Jonathan?
I will admit I was not quite as engaged in this one as I was in the first episode. It seemed like, 17, 18 minutes of talking about a bread maker, and I don't know. It didn't interest me that much.
So my take was, I'm really glad we don't talk about IoT on the show, because I felt like the video suffered from that problem. It's really hard to explain IoT in any way that makes sense to layman's people. And they did a good job. There was a couple of things that they made different from the first episode. The first episode had a lot more diagrams and a lot more trying to explain in an infographic format, and they did less of that this time around, which was really great. And overall, I think I liked it was a little bit shorter. Or at least it felt shorter. It didn't feel a little bit too long like the last one did. It's still interesting. I still like the production quality. I think it's great. And they had 6 months from reInvent to edit this one, I guess. But hopefully they come out a little bit faster now that we're into summit season. But overall, I think it's a good second episode. Definitely not as good as the first. I agree with you on that, Jonathan. But it was something I didn't know about, something I would not have known about before. And even my wife thought it was pretty interesting. So she had similar thoughts as I did, that it was nice and short and to the point, and we got a good idea. But I still don't think at $1,000 we don't eat a lot of rotis in the house. I don't think we'll buy one, but if we did, we would be all over this. Yeah,
I mean, it's just the start though, right? Today it's rotis. Next week it's going to be something else. In a year's time it'll be hamburgers and fries, and nobody will work at McDonald's anymore. And it's just further automation. More people out of jobs.
Well, you get into this situation though where if a device gets too specialized, right, like it loses its appeals. And I think Alton Brown talks about this a lot in his shows about unitasker versus multitaskers. And so it was nice to see that they were talking about going into pizzas and going into other flatbread products, and they talk about that on their website as well if you look into it. But if it gets to the point where it's a hot dog maker, right, where you put the bun and the hot dog into the maker and you cook it like a toaster oven, that's a pretty very single use case product. I don't know if that will get to that level, but we'll see.
It's coming. My prediction: 5 years time, half of McDonald's will be automated.
I know. I was at a McDonald's not that long ago, and I used their digital order screen, which was really nice because I didn't have to talk to a human, as my introverted self likes to not talk to people. So it was nice, but you do also kind of wish that you're talking to a person as you're trying to I want to remove mayonnaise from the sandwich, and you're like 3 clicks into a menu that you don't understand. It's coming, but it's not quite there yet. So, but
that's funny.
Have you used the Panera one?
Yeah, actually, in my former life, we designed the Panera app.
Oh, awesome.
So I have a lot of intimate knowledge of the Panera app that I can't really talk about.
Well, can I just say that I love it because I use it at work all the time, and I can't believe how easy it is to get my order in, customize my order. By the time I walk over there, it's sitting on a shelf waiting for me. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And the in-store ordering is actually really good, too. Both of those I know people who had a direct hand in. So.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, Jonathan here. I just wanted to take a minute to thank the cloud consulting gurus at Foghorn for helping make the CloudPod possible. These folks truly get it. Cloud consulting experts since 2008, they are premier tier partners with AWS, Google Cloud Platform Silver, and Microsoft Azure partners. From multi-cloud to containers to moving full production workloads to the cloud under the tightest compliance, Foghorn's team of full-stack cloud engineers have been there, done that, gotten the t-shirt, and are ready to share their experience with you. If you're in the market for some talent to supplement your team, visit www.fogops.io/thecloudpod. www.fogops.io/thecloudpod. Foghorn, the promise of cloud delivered.
Well, well, let's move along to our next item. So Channel 9, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with Channel 9, but this is Microsoft's online video chat service series that they do for developers. They have now launched a Global Azure Bootcamp. This is a free one-day event that will be taking place globally. So you'll be able to find local event locations where you can go join this event. And it will be on Saturday, April 27th, 2019. And they will be starting it in New Zealand, and they will be finishing it in Hawaii. So it is a truly global event, and you can find an Azure Bootcamp location on the website today to go sign up and join this global event.
That sounds good. I might check that out.
Yeah, I'm curious. There's one close by. I might stop in and say hello and see what it's all about, because it sounds like fun.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm sure you'll have a better luck finding one than we will, because you're in the city, but there'll be several in San Francisco.
Yeah, and our team is so dispersed now that our engineers can look locally for and potentially end up at working on the same event in different locations. Just Foghorn. That'd be kind of cool.
Nice. Azure has announced a preview of data discovery and classification for Azure SQL Data Warehouse. This is a new feature for data warehousing to identify PII or sensitive data and basically allow you to track it, who's accessed it, how it's being used, is it on hardened systems, and alert you when anonymous access to this data is happening. And so this is all fronted to you in the Azure portal. And the engine for the DD&C, or the data discovery and classification engine, includes that auto discovery and that reporting dashboard all built in the product. So that's really a nice enhancement if you're really worried about sensitive PII data in your system.
That's cool. I wonder if they'll extend it to become like a data loss prevention product as well.
Ooh.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah. And this is because the same kind of rules, right? That you want to be able to write, same policies.
Yeah, well, if I know that this is sensitive data, I would want to then be able to potentially block an unauthorized user from accessing the data or exfilling that data from my system.
It seems like this is a great solution for people who already got a bunch of data, who didn't think about privacy to begin with, and now this will go in and tell them what they've got and where it is, so they can secure it. It's retroactively implementing security.
Yeah. Also, when you look at companies who do who have lots of different users of systems like a data warehouse, it's really tough to make sure that everybody's trained up, and you might not even you might have a policy that says, this specific data warehouse is not for that sensitive data, and people might be uploading stuff anyway. So I think it's a great way to democratize services like this and still have some oversight to make ssure people are using them correctly.
Mm-hmm. One of the problems we've had in some of our applications is you give somebody a free text field and they can type whatever they like in there, and you get people you just have a field that you don't imagine personal information is going to end up in, and so you'll paste a social security number in there or a birth date or something else that shouldn't really be there.
Yeah.
So this is an awesome solution to finding stuff that doesn't belong in places.
It's something that I wish Amazon would do as well. Macy was a great start, but Macy just handles S3, and we need more than that. So definitely looking forward to seeing more developments in this space.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't call out HIPAA in this. GDPR, I get, but this is perfect for healthcare applications as well.
I don't know if the data warehouse is HIPAA compliant, so maybe that's why it's not mentioned. But something to look into.
Yeah.
Azure Search has new storage optimized service tiers now in preview. So Azure Search is an AI-powered cloud search service for modern mobile and web app development. It's the only search apparently built with AI capabilities built in that enrich all types of information to easily identify and explore relevant content at scale. The new preview is for 2 new service tiers, so this is a even higher level of performance. The L series tier, as they call it, allows you more storage at higher performance with reduced cost per terabyte when compared to their standard tiers.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
I don't write apps that use search engines.
Basically their answer to Elasticsearch. That makes sense. Amazon Partner Network, if you're an Amazon partner, you're very familiar with this, has their new changes in effect as of April 1st. They last changed their requirements over 3 years ago, and for the layman's people, the big items is that the standard tier partners are now known as select tier partners, which apparently is one word that means nothing to another word that means nothing to most people, but apparently the standard tier was causing some confusion in the market. They have added some new structured benefits for partners related to how they go to market with a partner, the partner knowledge required, the experience, and customer success. And they have actually, instead of they're actually moving away from influence spend or direct spend influence to more launched opportunities as the new measurement criteria, which is really nice. Because as a partner, you typically would end up trying to close new logos or new accounts because that would bring you new influence spend or new direct spend. But it didn't really recognize you for doing multiple projects with the same customer. And so this new launch opportunities can be for the same logo or same account. And as long as they're separate projects and opportunities that you kicked off and completed, you get credit for them in the new partner network. So nice improvements. Definitely something I know the partners have wanted as a former Premier partner myself. I know these were areas that I was sometimes frustrated with. I'm very glad to see lots of improvements.
Yeah, and I was just we had just reached our Premier status this summer. So looking at these new requirements, I think it's good that they stepped it up a little bit to make sure that they continue to sort of identify, let the cream rise to the top, identify the partners who have more commitment, more expertise on their platform.
I was actually surprised they didn't create a new tier above Premier. I sort of thought they're getting a lot of Premier partners now, which is great and something you start to see a maturing of the market. But do you start looking at them separating the Premier from the super Premiers in the future? But not this year, maybe in the future. We'll see. But the requirements to stay Premier, though, are much, much higher now. So it used to be you had to have 8 professional certification people, I believe, and now it's higher than that, but it can be a combination of specialty certifications as well as professional certifications, which is nice. But the number's higher. Yeah,
well, and before it was just pure number of certs, and as one of the smaller Premier partners, all our guys have like 5 certs, so it made it super easy to reach the total number of certs. And now it's 2 individuals, so you can have 1 or 5. You just count as 1.
That's too bad.
Yeah,
it's pretty difficult sometimes with the when they want referenceable customers, because we do a lot of work for people who don't go public about the way their systems work or don't want to be a reference customer. So
especially security.
Yeah, right. So publicly referenceable customers is kind of awkward, although they only require 2 of those. But it's interesting that they've added customer satisfaction as a metric as well. You got to have 5 good customer responses.
Well, and it's interesting that they want that customer satisfaction to actually go through the partner portal. So if your partners are starting to ask you to give reviews through the partner portal, it's tied to all of these changes to the APN. But I don't know that I would trust the partner portal review ratings more than I would a true CSAT survey. But they're trying to democratize it, so I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon DynamoDB has a price drop this week. The price drop is a little bit different. It's actually been done by eliminating the associated charges for global tables that were incurred by DynamoDB streams. And so if you're using a global table from Dynamo, you had to configure these DynamoDB streams that stream the data to the different regions that you have configured in the global table. You used to have to pay for this, and that pricing has now been eliminated. So you no longer have to pay for a DynamoDB stream going to a global table. You do still have to pay for them, though, if you're using it in your own application. If you have your own Kafka cluster or your own thing that's kind of reading off of a DynamoDB stream, you'll still pay for those. But if it's going for global tables, it's now free.
So presumably you still pay for the actual bandwidth used for the data shipped, but just not the stream facility itself.
Correct.
Right.
Oh, that's fair enough.
Yeah, and global tables is pretty nice. It's a fully managed multi-region, multi-master database, very similar to something like Spanner from Google. So this is definitely something you want to do, but it was a bit of an anti-pattern because you would end up incurring these huge costs if your Dynamo global table was very active because of these streams, in addition to the bandwidth you're already paying. So it's a nice price reduction. It's a little bit of a weird nomenclature they use to describe this one, but overall, I like price cuts.
Yeah.
So moving on to GCP, scale-out storage has now been introduced with the new Elastifile cloud file service for GCP. As they talk about in the article, file storage is needed for traditional applications and achieving the high throughput and performance compute-heavy workloads like rendering movies or electronic design automation. This Elastifile offering, when Elastifile is its own company, this is a partnership, but it is fully managed through the Google Cloud portal. So it's a fully managed enterprise file service. And this deepens the relationship between both Elastifile and GCP. All of the billing is done through the GCP marketplace, and you can scale up to multiple petabytes of storage with pay-as-you-go pricing. They also have the ability to tier data between the file system and object storage, which could eventually save you some big money. And it's a great solution for Kubernetes persistent storage or data resilience for your preemptible VMs.
Yeah, the tiered storage is definitely competing with NetApp now. But I don't know, it's a managed NFS, so I'm not that excited.
Is it managed on top of GCP resources, or are they doing something different?
I believe what happens is that this file system gets attached to your VPC inside your project. And so once you declare the project in Google and you attach this to it, you now have the storage available to you as a simple NFS mount point. It's completely managed by Elastifile as a managed service, though, so you don't worry about adding disks to handle throughput capacity. You're just paying for the gigabytes of storage used at the 3 different performance tiers.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it doesn't sound cloud native to me. It sounds like something on top of GCP native services. So I think the management aspect is super valuable. It just doesn't seem cloud native.
Well, this is the way that both Azure and Google have kind of gone to market. Amazon has very much had we're going to build this product natively into the cloud and we're going to have it available to you, versus Azure and GCP have partnered with people like NetApp to provide similar services that Amazon already had, and that helped them get to market much faster. I don't know long term if you start seeing GCP say, we're going to have our own native offering, or if they're always going to support the partner network, and that's still to be determined at this point in time. But it is a interesting way to get to market much faster, because if they're trying to build out an entire Amazon competitive product, they're 4 years later than Amazon, so that's 4 years they had to catch up on, and anything they can do to accelerate market share, I think, is a win for them.
Yeah, for sure. Just having something just enables migrations, whereas if you have nothing, it could be a total blocker. And file systems are always the hardest thing to move.
And then our final news story this week, Chef has announced they're going 100% open source. So Chef used to be open core model, which is basically an open source core capabilities, but there was a bunch of proprietary features you would pay for from Chef, particularly around security and enterprise type features. They've now made that all open source and available, and if you would like to make your own distribution of any of that code, you can now do so without having to pay Chef directly. But they do feel overall this is still a good move for them. All of their Chef commercial offerings will be built from the same open source code now. And their chief product officer, Corey Scobie, said they believe that making it open is the best way to build software that works for people. It becomes increasingly difficult for Chef to explain which parts of the software are open source and which are not. So this is a really interesting change of pace from what we see with Redis and Elastico and Mongo, etc., who are going the opposite direction, trying to become more closed and more insular.
They rewrote Chef in Erlang, so they're probably desperate for people to come and work on their product.
Well, the Chef itself is not Erlang, but all the backend services definitely are. So that is a bit of a challenge.
No, this is great news.
This to me is like when, I can't remember the lawsuit. I think it was NFL. Their players union decertified and sued over becoming free agents, and it just opened up free agency and changed the NFL. That's what this feels like. It feels like the first big shoe to drop in what could really change the whole monetizing open source business models in the future.
Adam Jacobs, who's on their board and is a founder of Chef, but he's not working there day-to-day anymore, he said, it turns out that the product that was what mattered in the first place. Said they continue to produce great enterprise software for their customers, and their customers continue to be happy and continue to buy it, which is what they always would have done. He also noted that he doesn't think Amazon Web Services will ever be better at running Elasticsearch than Elastic, or for that matter, at running Chef better than Chef can run it. So, he's going around saying, let the best man win. We think we can run it better than you can. Amazon, you're going to be too distracted to run this service at the best way possible, and so we can always do a better job because we're hyper focused on one thing. So overall, I'm curious to see if anyone reacts to this and if anyone follows suit with Chef really quickly. But definitely another wrinkle in these continuing open source battles of today.
Yeah, but to be fair, I mean, if you look at so Chef is going to charge some amount of money either for their managed offering. The amount of resource required to run Chef infrastructure versus the value they add is very small. The resource is a very small percentage of the value add, where when you look at something like Elasticsearch or another product that needs massive amounts of infrastructure behind it, and then you look at those companies' ability to consume that cost and put a margin on top of it, I think it's going to be a lot harder for other services to do this, or other open source projects to do this, than it is for Chef. I think it's easiest for Chef.
We'll see what happens in the next few weeks here. But next week, a big event's happening. Google Next is coming up next week. And so, as we promised, we will be doing a prediction draft. And so how this works is prior to the show, the three of us rolled the dice to see who would go first. And Jonathan has the first draft pick, followed by myself and Peter. So each of us will pick 3 things that we believe will happen or be announced or talked about at Google next week. And so basically, after each item is taken off the board, it will be off the board and can't be picked by someone else. So if Jonathan picks, they're going to say the word Google on stage, then I can't pick that as my first round pick. And so we'll go through first round, we each pick one item, and then we'll repeat for second and then third round. For every one of these you get right, you get 1 point. And if we have a tie, we will let Ryan Lucas, our good friend, be the tiebreaker for this. So any questions before we get started?
I didn't do my homework correctly, but that's okay. I'll follow your
see
lead.
How it goes.
I've got a few product things, but yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would hope that yours is not as low bar as he's going to mention the word Google. I don't think technically we would allow that to be.
Okay,
and also
good.
anything that was announced, is already well known in the marketplace or been talked about as a high level. We will not be allowed in the draft.
Okay.
So we'll see if any of those come up, but I don't think that'll happen. So,
All right.
Jonathan, with that being said, you are the first pick and you are on the board.
Okay. I believe next week Google will announce a blockchain as a service.
Ooh,
Good call.
Nice.
Good call. I'm jealous of that one. I didn't come up with it myself, but I like your pick here.
Justin, you're next.
Yeah, so my first one is I expect them to make a major announcement regarding Google Spanner, either in features or capabilities.
ooh. All right. I'm going with a major announcement around GKE features. And since I can't just say that, I'm going to say monitoring integration, which I'd imagine would be Stackdriver, but
That is very specific.
yeah.
Stackdriver is not already supported by GKE.
I don't think for container metrics.
Okay, fair enough. Jonathan, that puts you back on the board.
Okay. Google will announce a new messaging system.
Like a Kafka type service, or are you thinking about messaging like IM?
Yeah, and instant messaging, consumer messaging system.
I don't know that would be at the cloud event, but we'll see. Maybe.
You never know.
They've announced some weird stuff at Next.
Would we count that as chat ops as well, potentially?
I was thinking collaboration tools. Honestly, I was thinking, just like Microsoft have gone into the DevTools space, I think Google will probably expand their footprint into it. So
Are you trying to call out a Slack competitor?
well, they didn't buy Slack. I was really hoping. Although
No, you still have time on that prediction, but I see what you're doing.
I'll say collaboration tools.
All right, we'll go with collaboration tools. That seems fair. All right, my number 2 pick is I expect Thomas Kurian, the new CEO of Google, to be all about the enterprise. We are going to see enterprise mentioned on stage at least 4 times by either Thomas or his associated co-presenters on stage. Enterprise is going to be the theme everywhere.
Sounds good.
Peter, that puts you on the board.
I'm going to stick with my my product focus and say we're going to see a really cool deployment offering, aka managed Spinnaker.
Ooh.
Managed DevOps deployment option, like Spinnaker. All right.
Okay.
Jonathan, that puts you on for your 3rd pick.
Okay, my 3rd and final pick. Announce support for additional cloud functions runtimes. Right now it's pretty limited.
That was in my list, but not my number 3, so I'm glad you took that now. New languages for functions. Perfect. My number 3 is announcement of a Google SIM product.
Ooh, nice. It's like no-brainer.
Yeah,
They really
no-brainer,
need that.
And everything coming up to this point has been about centralized security, but no one has SIM capabilities. I think Google's going to do it first, so we'll see.
Let's hope so. That'd be cool.
All right, Peter, your 3rd.
How about hybrid service mesh?
Ooh, like a Envoy type product?
Yes.
Don't they own Istio though, technically?
Yes.
Okay. Haven't they already announced the Istio as a?
Is it hybrid though? Is it?
Well, I guess it's not hybrid. I guess
Kubernetes?
it's only on cloud, so that's probably Istio like for hybrid cloud. All right, cool. Well, I think those are all really great recommendations, and I was surprised we didn't step over each other on a couple of these. Any that you guys had in your list that you felt it didn't make your number one list, but were something you had as a backup plan that you want to mention? You won't get any points for it, but I'll give you credit next week.
I was thinking they were going to announce CPU support.
Oh yeah, they haven't. They've not done ARM yet.
They haven't. They're all in on Intel right now, so.
Or maybe AMD even.
How about Microsoft SQL as a platform, supported platform on Cloud SQL?
Interesting. I actually had on my list better support for .NET and Windows in general.
Cool.
I felt that was an area that they sort of are lacking. I also had maybe a major acquisition. There was when I was doing my research, there was some talk about, does Thomas do a big acquisition of somebody like Snow or Splunk? I don't think it'd be that big. That'd be a massive acquisition, but I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe a smaller acquisition that would build out some of their DevOps tooling or something that they announced next week. So I do see maybe an acquisition in our future. And the other one was I expect them to hype the Stadia gaming thing as well. But as I was previously announced, it would not be eligible for the draft. But I do expect it to end up on stage.
Okay, that's going to be interesting.
Better Microsoft support is definitely, I think, in the cards, because I think that's an area they will need to adopt and get better play for enterprise, which goes back to my second choice. So, all right. Well, that's fantastic. So we'll see how we do next week, and maybe we'll all lose. But I know I will be there. I don't know, Jonathan, I think you might be there as well. Are you going to be there, Peter?
I'm not. I'm in Kansas City. Otherwise,
lovely.
I would be there. Yep.
Nice. Are you going to go do any fun sporting events while you're in Kansas City?
I don't think so. If the weather is nice, maybe I'll try to sneak out and golf. But otherwise, no.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a different type of sport.
Kind of a sport. Yeah. It's our long-standing argument. Is that a sport or is that a game? I love it.
I think it's an excuse to get away.
For you, the listeners of the CloudPod podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook downloaded with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/thecloudpod. Again, that's audibletrial.com/thecloudpod for your free audiobook. Well, let's move on to the lightning round then, Peter.
Okay, here we go. Lightning round. First up, AWS Firewall Manager now supports AWS Shield Advanced.
Why couldn't they make Shield be the name of the firewall manager and then just call it Amazon DDoS? Like, it would make more sense in the market, don't you think? Like Shield, then it covers all these things versus the other way around.
Yeah, that would make sense.
The product announcements just get weirder and weirder.
Amazon Comprehend now supports AWS KMS encryption.
Yay? I guess, encrypt everything, everywhere, as Warner's shirt said.
I don't understand this one.
Well, are you not able to comprehend?
Exactly.
Presumably, this is so we can start using Comprehend to do language processing on like healthcare stuff, just like Microsoft announced the bot service, for healthcare bots or whatever last week.
Amazon Aurora with Postgres now supports logical replication.
On paper, this seems strange because the whole point of Aurora is to handle the replication for you. But then if you look at this a little bit further, you realize, this is replicating to other Postgres compatible data stores or DMS. So I guess, yay. But once you're in Aurora, just stay in Aurora.
Yeah. Once you have to do migrations, all of a sudden you're like, yes, we need this, please. We went through migrations recently, and you're just stuck with dumps and loads, and it's painful. Next up, Amazon API Gateway improves API publishing and adds developer portal features.
Hey.
I'm so glad they found Swagger.
AWS EC2 now lets you pick the time for scheduled events.
I choose never to have How Do I Get Down, please.
But I mean, didn't you already sort of have the time? Because they would just tell you, you have 30 days to make this happen, or we're doing it for you. So you could have picked any time up to those 30 days. It's a little weird.
If you weren't picking the time in the first place, what were they? How were they scheduled events?
Right. Well, they were scheduled because they were eventually going to force you to do it, but you had the choice to do it before that. But now you can schedule the schedule. Action. I guess so.
Awesome. Amazon Transcribe enhances custom vocabulary with custom pronunciations and display forms.
I wonder if it can pronounce Azure properly.
Excellent.
Well, but it's transcribing, so I just had to be able to read it properly. So, but I was wondering if it would be able to handle your British accent now properly.
I just hope it does Greek last names. Jeez. You should hear Siri butcher all the names in my list. That's terrible.
How does Alexa do on that?
I have no Alexa in my house, but my only experience is with Siri, and it's painful.
Well, you could fix that. You don't have to have an Alexa. You could just use Lex to get the same.
Oh, well, there you go. Maybe I should do that.
Yeah.
Stop complaining, right? Stop complaining. All right, so we can now deploy Micro Focus Plate Spin Migrate on AWS with their new Quick Start.
And the reward for worst product naming announcement ever goes to Platespin. This was awful. Micro Focus Platespin Migrate.
Isn't Platespin where you just have a bunch of crap in the air, just like going round, you have to keep touching it and spinning them so they don't all fall down and smash?
Doesn't that make you feel good about your infrastructure?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes you feel fantastic.
AWS Key Management Service increases API requests per second limits.
If only did this like 2 years ago.
Right. I mean, I'm so glad I can now avoid that outage because the website load on my database increased too high that I couldn't get a key back from the key management system fast enough.
This is especially good for me because when I run into API errors on KMS, I often have as a fail-safe, delete my data.
I took the page from the Microsoft book.
Yeah. All right, you can now restore an encrypted Aurora Postgres database from an unencrypted snapshot.
Sneaky.
I didn't realize this was a limitation before. That again, like, chalk this up to things I didn't know because I never had to do it. But it seems like a pretty obvious thing that if I have deployed an encrypted database, that I might want to restore non-encrypted data to it, but encrypt it as I restore. It seems like a pretty no-brainer to me.
Yeah, they did the same thing recently with EC2 instances as well, didn't they? The root volumes. You can now deploy encrypted or unencrypted root volumes from encrypted or unencrypted snapshots. It's pretty cool.
There's a new Python script that makes it easy to get started quickly with Amazon Elastic Inference.
Import Elastic Inference.
I mean, I guess this is a problem for people somewhere who wants to pay a lot of money for a GPU, but I'm glad it's easy with Python.
No, but it's low cost. It's low cost GPU. That's what
right.
The article says.
Have you looked at the pricing? It's definitely not low cost.
Great. I love Python. I'm surprised this made a news announcement. Amazon has released a new Coursera course on building serverless applications.
So who's going to buy Coursera first, Google or Amazon? Both of them have started releasing Coursera courses directly, and I'm starting to think there's some type of game going on in the background.
And what's going to happen to the others' courses when it happens?
Right. Well, I mean, Google bought Quick Labs, and they still have really outdated Amazon labs available to you. But hopefully Amazon doesn't let this one get away from them.
I've seen some activity on Twitter. People have used this to go and build and deploy some serverless apps. That looks pretty cool.
I started doing the SRE course we talked about last week. It's actually pretty good too. I recommend it.
Yeah, I did a Coursera course in the past, and I thought it was pretty decent. And last up, AWS now allows use of resource level policies for Amazon CloudWatch alarms.
So we're more tagging to handle security. So I'm sure that makes you super happy, Jonathan.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Grant or deny access based on a tag. You're welcome, world. All right. Who won the lightning round this week, Peter?
I got to go with Justin's constant and unyielding consistency across the board on having something to say about every single one.
I try. I mean, they're not always good things to say, but
No,
I try.
not always good. Not always good.
No, Justin gets he did the homework.
Yeah, yeah.
If only you were told in advance that these are in the show notes for you to read. At least 24 hours in advance before recording. We do put them in.
And to be fair, they're usually in there like 6.5 days in advance. There's plenty of time for us to
They
do our
go in
homework.
all the way time. Yes, indeed. That's going to wrap it up for this week's exciting episode. We will be back next week, a little bit delayed because Google Next is happening Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday as well. And so we will record Thursday night to recap what's happening at Google Next and give you the lowdown of what you need to know in the world of Google. So have a great evening, guys, and talk to you next week.
Yep.
See you.
See you then.
And that is the Week in Cloud. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Foghorn Consulting and Audible.com. Subscribe today on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts and tweet us your feedback at #thecloudpod.